Hello friends, welcome to the channel, where we bring you a new and intriguing crime story every time. If you want to be a part of this thrilling journey with us, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you receive our stories first. 50-year-old Pushpendra Vyas lived on High Court Road in Jodhpur district, Rajasthan. He worked as a supervisor in a company located in Pauta. Around 18 years ago, Pushpendra married Poonam, who was also from Jodhpur. Poonam was 10 years younger than Pushpendra. Over time, Poonam became a mother of 2 children, an elder daughter named Ankita and a son named Dhruv. From the beginning, ambitious Poonam had always dreamed of having her own house, where she could live like a queen and proudly say, "This is my house, and no one else has a share in it. As long as I am alive, I will be the owner, and after me, my children will inherit it." However, after marriage, she entered a large joint family, which included her in-laws, an elder brother-in-law, and 3 sisters-in-law. Though she dreamed of having her own house, she was also deeply rooted in values, so she never directly asked her husband to leave his family and build a separate home. Like an ideal daughter-in-law, she adjusted and lived harmoniously with everyone. Time passed, and her in-laws passed away. The 3 sisters-in-law got married and moved to their respective homes, while the elder brother-in-law built his own house and shifted there with his family. Now, Poonam was once again haunted by the dream she had before marriage, owning her own house. One day, she finally expressed her feelings to her husband, telling him how she had always envisioned her own dream home before and after marriage. She urged him to buy a plot and build their own house. Instead of understanding his wife's emotions, Pushpendra replied, "We already have a perfectly good house to live in. Why do we need to build a new one?" "Yes, we do, but it is not entirely ours," Poonam responded. "Half of it belongs to your elder brother, and your 3 sisters also have a rightful share. If they decide to claim their portions, the part we get will be much smaller than what we need." Poonam's logic forced Pushpendra to think seriously. Seeing her husband silent, she continued, "Think about it. Your elder brother and his family also lived here, but why did they move out? He was wise. Thinking about his children's future, he built his own house. You should also let go of your attachment to this old house. A home of your own is truly yours." After thinking calmly, Pushpendra realized that Poonam was not wrong. He immediately began looking for options and soon bought a plot in Shantinagar, Chopasni. The property was registered in Poonam's name. The next day, Pushpendra visited an architect. Poonam described exactly how she wanted the house to be, and the architect created a detailed design accordingly. He even built a model of the house based on the plan and showed it to Pushpendra. Poonam felt like she was living her dream, and after the Bhumi Pujan, groundbreaking ceremony, the construction of the house began. No matter how much money you have, it always seems insufficient when building a house. Pushpendra invested all his savings, yet it wasn't enough. To support her husband, Poonam stepped forward. She knew sewing and embroidery, so she started working from home, earning some money, and contributing to the house construction. It took months, but finally, the house was completed. A few days later, Pushpendra and Poonam, along with their children, performed the housewarming ceremony following proper rituals. Poonam's happiness knew no bounds after moving into their new home. Like any middle-class person who struggles to build a house, Pushpendra faced the same situation. He was financially exhausted and his hands were completely empty. To bring their financial situation back on track, he started working overtime. He would leave for work at 8:30 a.m. and return only after 10 p.m. Poonam also continued sewing and embroidery work at home to earn some extra money. The good thing was that they had not taken any loans for the construction, so within a year they regained financial stability. When money started coming in, Pushpendra wanted to deposit it into his empty bank accounts. However, Poonam stopped him, arguing that banks offer very low interest on savings. Instead, she suggested lending money to needy people at higher interest rates for better returns. Pushpendra knew that money lending and recovery could be a hassle. Large-scale lenders even hire goons for collection, and this was not something a simple homemaker like Poonam could handle. He feared they might lose their money. Despite all the risks, Pushpendra didn't want to break Poonam's heart. He thought, If a year's worth of her hard-earned money is lost, so be it, but at least her spirit shouldn't be crushed. He believed that once she faced difficulties, she would realize the trouble and stop on her own, so he gave her permission. Poonam reached out to the local community and started lending money on interest. Within a year, her business took off, and after 2 years, she was earning well. Pushpendra was happy that his blind gamble had paid off. The money he earned from overtime was also lent out by Poonam at interest. Both husband and wife were extremely busy, so much so that they hardly found time for each other. They were so exhausted that the moment they lay down, they fell into deep sleep. It was the early days of December 2012. There was a celebratory event at Poonam's maternal home. However, Poonam had to collect interest and principal amounts, and Pushpendra had taken up overtime work, making it impossible for them to attend. After discussing the matter, they decided to send Ankita and Dhruv to their grandmother's house. They were supposed to return the next day. That evening, Pushpendra thought it was a golden opportunity to clear Poonam's complaints. There were no kids at home to disturb them. He wanted to rekindle memories of their early married days. So, he worked overtime only until 7 p.m. and then left for home. Wanting to surprise Poonam, he didn't inform her about coming home early. When Pushpendra arrived home at 8 p.m., he quietly opened the iron main gate and reached the door. Just as he was about to ring the doorbell, he heard Poonam's laughter. A moment later, a man's voice struck his ears like molten glass. "Oh Poonam, you're 40 years old now, but you still have the enthusiasm of a 20-year-old girl." It felt like a bomb exploded in Pushpendra's head. Who was this? He immediately withdrew his hand from the doorbell and tried to peek inside. The window panes were made of transparent glass, covered with curtains from the inside. The ceiling fan was running, and by sheer luck, or misfortune, the wind caused the curtain to move, giving him brief glimpses of the inside. Through the window, he saw the drawing room. On the divan, lying naked, was Poonam. With her was a young man from the neighborhood, Irfan. He too was unclothed. It seemed they had already crossed the river of pleasure and were now teasing each other verbally in a relaxed state. Poonam never strayed when she was younger, but now at 40 she had tarnished her character. Her betrayal darkened Pushpendra's vision. Anger boiled within him. He thought of screaming, fighting, or making a scene, but he knew that doing so would only bring disgrace upon himself. The neighborhood would talk about Poonam anyway, but he would no longer be able to face anyone. He turned away from the window, unable to bear his wife's shamelessness. After standing there for a while, he quietly walked out of the gate, closing it as it was. Pushpendra sought something to drown his sorrow, something to help him endure Poonam's betrayal. When no solace came to mind, he went to a liquor shop, drank heavily, and then decided to return home to vent his frustration and show Poonam the right path. When he reached home, everything appeared normal. Irfan had clearly left, and Poonam, now freshened up, was waiting for him. Pushpendra rang the doorbell, and Poonam immediately opened the door. She greeted him with her usual smile, but Pushpendra neither smiled back nor spoke. Staggering slightly from the alcohol, he entered and collapsed onto the sofa. The scent of his breath made it clear that he had been drinking. Poonam didn't mind Pushpendra drinking occasionally for fun, so she didn't react negatively. She closed the door and stood before him, smiling. Since the kids weren't home, Poonam was in the mood too. She moved closer to embrace him. But now, the woman who had been faithful to another man was ready to betray her own husband. Pushpendra's anger flared again. He shoved Poonam away. She stumbled and barely managed to regain her balance. Then he exploded into curses. The truth that he had witnessed at 8 p.m. came pouring out. Hearing this, Poonam's face turned pale. She burst into tears and fell at his feet, begging, "I made a mistake. Please forgive me. I had taken Irfan's help to collect money, and he started taking his commission from my body. Seeing his youth, I lost control. It was my first and last mistake. Please forgive me." Pushpendra bent down and looked into her eyes. "Now that you're in trouble, you change your colors like a chameleon. These are crocodile tears." Poonam grabbed his feet more tightly. "I'm drowning in guilt. Please forgive me, or I'll hang myself and die." Pushpendra had already decided to forgive her, so he did, but with a warning. For a couple of months, things seemed fine. Then he started noticing Poonam's behavior changing again. When he confronted her, she denied everything. "I am a housewife, not a prostitute. Just because I made one mistake doesn't mean I will keep repeating it. Stop doubting me." But how could Pushpendra let go of his suspicions when the sources informing him were trustworthy? He was filled with rage. He wanted to strangle her and end the matter once and for all. And then on April 12, 2013, Poonam's story truly ended. She was found murdered in her home, stabbed multiple times with a knife. The kitchen knife used in the murder lay near her body. The truth came to light when a neighbor, visiting for some work, found the door open and Poonam's lifeless body inside. Panicked, she screamed, drawing the attention of the entire neighborhood. The police were informed, and soon the authorities arrived at the scene. Pushpendra also arrived home. The police noted that the wardrobe was open, and Pushpendra stated that the jewelry and 2,500,000 in cash were missing. At first glance, it appeared to be a robbery turned murder. A case was registered under IPC sections 302, murder, and 394, robbery. The body was sent for post-mortem, and the report revealed shocking details. Although there were multiple stab wounds, the actual cause of death was asphyxiation. Poonam had been strangled. DCP Ajaypal Lamba formed a police team led by ACP Himanshu Sharma to solve the case and apprehend the culprits. The investigation team decided to examine several angles, including Poonam's phone records. When the police retrieved her call history, they found that she frequently spoke to a particular number. In the week leading up to her murder, they had spoken 63 times. Further investigation revealed that the number belonged to Deepak Rigar, a physical trainer at a gym on DV Road. The gym was owned by Murad, a contractor who had entrusted its management to Deepak. Deepak immediately became a suspect, and on April 17th, the police took him in for questioning. At first, Deepak denied knowing Poonam. "Sir, I don't know any Poonam Vyas," he insisted. But when the investigators showed him the call records, their patience wore thin. "If you don't know her, then did a ghost make 63 calls to her in 1 week?" they asked. "Tell us the truth, or you know how the police have unique ways of uncovering it." Deepak's face turned pale. His mouth went dry. Yet, he continued to mislead the police, but he didn't succeed. The officers trapped him in a web of questions, forcing him to confess. Deepak uncovered the truth, revealing a story about a woman who lent money on interest. In her greed for more profit, she even began to stake her body. It was unclear under what circumstances Poonam came into contact with Irfan, but an analysis of the facts suggested that she had no soft feelings of love or attachment toward him. Rather, she was drawn to Irfan's strong and handsome body, a body that was 15 years younger than hers. That's why, whenever she felt like it, she would call Irfan to her house. As Poonam told Pushpendra, she had taken Irfan's help in recovering her money. Irfan would collect the money that was at risk of being lost. Perhaps for this reason, she became enamored with his strength and dominance. Whatever the reason, Poonam and Irfan shared a deep relationship. However, the passion in their relationship began to cool after Pushpendra caught them in a compromising position. No one knew what circumstances led 40-year-old Poonam to fall so deeply. She enjoyed the taste of flesh, but wished to avoid swallowing bones. That's why the very next day after her husband caught them, she broke things off with Irfan. "My husband knows everything now. If Pushpendra leaves me, I will have no one to support me at this age. If my growing children find out about my character, they will turn away from me in disgust. That's why I don't want to continue this relationship. Consider it over from this moment," she told Irfan. Irfan, however, was not willing to let go of his freely obtained pleasure so easily. Since lending money and recovering interest required going out, he tried to persuade Poonam to meet him outside. But Poonam refused to revive the broken relationship. She even stopped taking Irfan's calls. Irfan kept calling her repeatedly, but when Poonam finally blocked his number, his calls stopped ringing, though missed call notifications still appeared on her screen. Irfan's close friend was Deepak. When Poonam stopped answering Irfan's calls, Irfan used Deepak's phone to call her in December 2012. Since the number was new to Poonam, she answered. Irfan pleaded with her for a long time, but she remained indifferent. After the call, Irfan handed the phone back to Deepak, who smirked and said, "Seems like your girlfriend is upset and won't listen, even after persuasion." "Yeah, man," Irfan replied, cursing Poonam, and then sharing all the spicy details of their affair. Deepak thought for a while before saying in a philosophical tone, "Once a tigress tastes human blood, she becomes a man-eater. My experience tells me that Poonam is also a man-eating tigress." "If that's true, then why is she running away from me?" Irfan asked. "Even the government tries to distance itself from tainted people these days, and Poonam is just an ordinary woman. She knows you'll always be in her husband's sights. That's why she doesn't want any association with you," Deepak explained. Irfan looked into his eyes and asked, "Just me, or is she avoiding all other men too?" "Just you," Deepak replied, "which means if someone else tries, they might succeed." "If you don't mind, I'd like to give it a shot," Deepak continued. "And if I succeed, I'll make sure you get your chance too." "Go ahead and try," Irfan smirked. "It's not like I'm planning to marry her. Women like Poonam are meant to be shared among friends." "How do I reach her? Any ideas?" A few days ago, Poonam was complaining that her waist and hips had developed thick layers of fat, so she wanted to join a gym. "Try calling her. Maybe it'll work." A few days later, Deepak called Poonam and told her about the facilities at his gym. He also mentioned that Irfan had given him her number. Poonam was pleased to talk to Deepak and ended up joining the gym. Deepak gave her a slot from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., a time when the gym was usually empty, giving him a perfect opportunity to win her over. His guess was correct. Poonam had only distanced herself from Irfan because her husband had caught them, marking Irfan as tainted. However, she started spending an hour alone with Deepak every day. Once again, his steps faltered. Using the excuse of teaching exercises at the gym, Deepak not only touched Poonam but also pressed himself against her. Seeing these gestures, Poonam would smile at him with her dreamy eyes, encouraging Deepak even more. One day, while Deepak was explaining an exercise to Poonam, she pointed to the fat around her waist and said, "Deepak, how can I reduce this belly fat? A lot of fat has also accumulated on my hips." Deepak smiled and replied, "Your waist fat will be gone in a week, but don't try to reduce the fat on your hips." "Why?" Poonam laughed and asked. "Because your curvy hips are what make you sexually appealing," Deepak said, and playfully patted her hips. A young man in his prime was attracted to a 40-year-old woman, so why wouldn't she give in? The attraction grew stronger, and Poonam started visiting Deepak's house in Kamla Nehru Nagar. Deepak, who lived alone as an unmarried man, had no restrictions, allowing them to indulge freely. Deepak had already learned about Poonam's weaknesses from Irfan. From day one, his target was to exploit the wealth of Poonam, who was financially well off. One day, when Poonam visited his room upon his invitation, Deepak had already planned to fulfill his intentions. A young man seeking refuge in her arms, Poonam couldn't resist the temptation, and they became physically involved. By the second half of January 2013, Poonam visited his room again. When she saw 80,000 in Deepak's cupboard, she asked, "Why do you keep so much money at home?" Deepak replied, "How long can I keep working at Murad's gym? I want to open my own gym, so I am saving money." "That's fine, but 80,000 isn't enough to open a gym." "I know, that's why I'm keeping it at home to increase the amount." "Keeping money at home won't increase it," Poonam said. "I am waiting for April to increase it." "What will happen in April?" "The 6th season of IPL will start and run until May. During this time, the betting market will be booming. If I place bets correctly, 80,000 will turn into 800,000 in no time. Then I'll be able to fulfill my dream of opening a gym." "But what if you lose?" "I won't lose. I have confidence in myself. Until then, this money will just sit idle in the cupboard." "Here's an idea," Poonam suggested. "Give me the money. I will invest it at interest. Before IPL starts, I'll return 80,000 to you, and you'll receive 880,000 in return." Deepak was tempted by the offer of doubling his money and handed over the entire amount to Poonam. As time passed and April began, Deepak asked for his money back. But Poonam started making excuses. IPL matches had started, and the first match was of Kolkata Knight Riders. Deepak had done a lot of research to bet on their players. However, when Poonam didn't return his money, he saw his whole plan collapsing. Whenever Deepak asked for his money, Poonam dodged the topic with excuses. Eventually, Deepak realized that Poonam was being dishonest and wanted to keep his money for herself. According to Deepak's statement to the police, on April 12, 2013, he went to Poonam's house to demand his money, taking Irfan along. When they asked for the money, Poonam got furious and outright denied ever taking it. This angered Deepak, and in rage, he slapped her multiple times. When Poonam started screaming, Irfan pushed her onto the bed and smothered her face with a pillow. Deepak rushed to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and stabbed Poonam multiple times in the chest and stomach, killing her instantly. Afterward, Deepak and Irfan searched her cupboard, took all the cash and jewelry they could find, and fled. The next day, the police presented Deepak in court and took him into a 3-day remand. Based on his confession, the police raided multiple locations to capture Irfan, but couldn't find him. On April 20th, while still in custody, Deepak attempted suicide by slashing his wrist with a pin. However, the on-duty guard noticed in time and raised an alarm. Deepak was immediately taken to the government hospital for treatment and was later sent back to jail. A separate case of attempted suicide was registered against him at the local police station. It is said that greed makes a person lose their character and principles. Poonam had a happy and content life, but her desire to earn more money through lending interest eventually brought the shadow of death upon her. This story is a lesson for those who mix the greed for money with the desires of the flesh, because the same partners in pleasure can sometimes bring destruction. If you liked the story, please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.